Hello guys, my name is Kenna, and as you can see, I am in my American Patriot outfit to get into today's presentation, which is on my founding father, James McHenry. And when you think of founding fathers, you think of the same three boring people that we learned about through middle and high school, which are mostly like George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. But today, we will be learning about one very Irish man who has saved people's lives. And when I tell you the story of his political career, it will make 2020 seem like a piece of cake. So this is my presentation, James McHenry, Founding Father and American Patriot. So let's get started on his early life and education. He was born in Ballymena, Ireland on November 16, 1753. He received a formative education while still living in Ireland, and he attended the University of Dublin. He immigrated to the United States when he was 18, and he did this because when he was still in his youth, he was still battling some bad health. So he wanted to make a new lease on life and immigrated. Another reason was because his sister Anna passed away an untimely death, so he just wanted a change. And then for education continued. After immigrating, he attended Newark Academy, which is now the University of Delaware. And for 2 years in Philadelphia, he studied under Dr. Benjamin Rush. And during his apprenticeship, McHenry ran the pharmacy and studied his medical journals profusely. And I know it's probably not in great focus, but this is a map of like 18th century Philadelphia. So this just gives like an overview of like the town and the size. Now let's get into his military service, which is very important. As a civilian, McHenry helped American forces in New England in 1755 with the siege of Boston. He staffed a military hospital in Cambridge as a volunteer assistant surgeon. When he enlisted in the military, he served as a surgeon and a member of the 5th Pennsylvania Battalion. In 1776, while defending Fort Washington among the Hudson River, he and other patriots were captured by the British and were now considered prisoners of war. He was later paroled to his house, and he was finally released in 1788. In May 1778, he was selected to be George Washington's assistant secretary. Oh, before you move on to the slide, cameraman, this is Fort Washington. It's a drawing, and as you can see, this is where the battle happened. And it was very important to him because he was captured there. As assistant secretary to George Washington, putting aside his role as a physician for the Continental Army, McHenry assisted with the drafting, writing, and organization of General Washington's correspondence. He fit in well with the small military family and became friends with Alexander Hamilton. And this will be very important in the future because this becomes an issue for him. And as we all know and love, this is our president, George Washington the First. Okay, McHenry remained as Washington's secretary until he joined Marquis de Lafayette squadron in 1780. He remained with Lafayette, joining the Maryland Senate in 1781 and served until 1786. Once elected into Maryland's legislature, he represented Maryland in the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Now this is probably the most important thing, which is his political stance. He was a very firm nationalist, and he campaigned for the ratification of the Constitution in his home state, which would be Maryland. He was a Federalist as well. So he went kind of out in the public and was trying to convince people why they should do this and why it would be good for all 13 colonies to come together and unite as one. And this is just the Constitution. After the convention, from 1789 to until 1791, McHenry sat in the State Assembly, and from 1791 until 1796, he worked as a senator in Maryland. He then became Secretary of War under Washington after 3 other people did not accept the offer. And this is another picture. Cameraman, can you try to make it look like you can see his face? Is it working, cameraman? Good, okay. This is another headshot of our man, the myth, the legend, James McHenry. Fighting a losing battle. That's all he was ever doing. When the threat of war with France appeared in 1798, George Washington expressed some disappointment in McHenry after some failure in initial months to prepare for war. When the war crisis was over, President John Adams forced McHenry to resign from his position of Secretary of War in May of 1800 for showing strong support for Adams' the bitterest of rivalries, Alexander Hamilton, his other bestie. So he lost his job over that. His personal life. James married a woman named Peggy who was very religious, and it is said that she loved poetry. Together they had 5 children, but only 3 made it to adulthood. So the oldest was Daniel. He had a passion for farming their land estate, and he had no interest in education, which really kind of upset his dad. And the next was Anna. She loved adventure and loved to travel. John was the 3rd oldest, and he loved education and later attended St. Mary's College in Baltimore. He later joined the Army. Margaretta was the 4th oldest, but sadly passed away of tuberculosis when she was only 15. And then the youngest, Rachel, also passed away at an early age. Now, I said here that only 3 made it to adulthood, and that is true, but early in Daniel's adulthood, after he had a kid or 2, he fell off the back of a horse and sadly passed away. So, in his late years, McHenry went into semi-retirement after his resignation and moved to his countryside estate in Baltimore. He became the president of a Bible society, which is very surprising because his wife was very religious, and he passed of a fever on May 3rd, 1816, at the age of 62 years old. Fort McHenry was later built in his honor and is now a part of the National Parks Association and is a popular tourist site visited by thousands a year. And this is a very grainy picture. Can you see, cameraman? Is it? Okay. It is a very grainy picture, but you can kind of get the idea. It's kind of like a star shape, and it's a very cool one. It's very popular. So, next slide. And that is the end of our amazing presentation. Thank you.